Saturday night at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the highly anticipated rematch between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. This family feud began 35 years ago when their fathers had their first of two bouts. That bitter rivalry carried over into the next generation. Expectations going into this one were sky high. When these two first met back in April, it was an action-packed Fight of the Year candidate with a lot of drama and a lot of fireworks. Eubank won that first encounter by 12-round unanimous decision, and it was a terrific fight. Many observers believed we were in for another treat this time around, but that isn't exactly what happened. Instead, it wound up being a one-sided mismatch of epic proportions. Benn got off to a good start in this one where he looked poised and patient. Eubank was having trouble establishing his jab, and Benn was doing well with his own. It was a competitive opening round, but Benn had more bounce in his step, and he was the one landing more effectively, more consistently, although Eubank did land one nice shot. Eubank seemed to be boxing a bit better to begin round two. Before long, the two were both engaged in some roughhouse tactics, which prompted a lecture from referee Kevin Parker. After the stern talking to, Benn was the one doing the better work and he landed the better shots for the rest of the round. This effectively became the trend of the fight. Round after round, Benn was outboxing Eubank and making it look easy. Benn was jabbing better, he was boxing better, and his measured approach served him very well. He had a game plan going in, and he stuck to that game plan, effectively executing throughout the contest. Eubank was unable to get going with any sustained offense, and his jab, one of his keys to victory in their first go-around, Benn completely neutralized it. Eubank tried his best to get that jab going, but Benn never allowed him to find any type of groove with it, and Benn was actually the one using his jab far more effectively. By round 7, Eubank's body language did not look good at all. He had very little snap on anything he threw, and he wasn't throwing all that much to begin with. There was very little conviction behind any of his punches, and without the need to worry about much in terms of return fire, Benn was effectively coasting, putting in the work while looking sharp in the process. There were some late fireworks in the 7th reminiscent of their first battle, but by comparison it was a mere flash in the pan. By the 8th, Benn was slowing down a bit, but he was still clearly in control of the action. Late in the round, Eubank finally showed some signs of life, marking this as his best round in the fight to this point, but it still felt like Benn had won the round all the same based on his good work for the majority of the round. Benn continued being very measured and patient, effectively throwing short combinations as things approached the championship rounds. And try as he might, Eubank was overmatched. Last time around, the championship rounds between those two were nothing short of incredible, where the two delivered fantastic crowd-pleasing action. This time around, however, Benn continued doing the superior work without much need to take things into a higher gear. Late in the 12th and final round, with under a minute left, Benn drilled Eubank with a sweet 1-2 that sent him down hard. Eubank bravely beat the count, and Benn was hell-bent on finishing him off. By this point, I was honestly expecting Eubank's corner to throw in the towel, but instead, Benn began battering him around with mean intent. Eubank was doing everything in his power to try and remain upright, but Benn soon had him down again. Eubank again bravely bounced back up, a bit too quickly perhaps, but by this point time had nearly expired and the fight was over. Benn won a unanimous decision with scores of 119 to 107, 116 to 110, and 118 to 108. Personally, I thought those cards were a bit generous to Eubank. I'm no judge, but I personally had it a shutout, 120 to 106 in favor of Benn. With that victory, Benn has the first and only victory in this 4-fight family rivalry spanning 35 years, where he avenged his only professional loss and did so in style. There were two key changes in his approach that I thought made the difference here in the rematch. First, and perhaps most importantly, Benn made better and more intelligent use of his jab. In their first encounter, Benn was having success when he jabbed, but he wasn't jabbing very much. The other key change was Ben was far more patient and measured this time around. Last time, Ben appeared as if he was trying to hurt Eubank with almost every single punch he threw. But this time, he stuck to boxing. And in doing so, he allowed his own offense to develop more organically. There were other things too. Ben was feinting to greater effect this time around, he was holding center ring a bit better, and he had better all-around pacing. But he showed a lot of maturity in the rematch, including a solid ring IQ, where he definitely learned from their first encounter and adjusted accordingly. It showed. During the post-fight interviews, Ben said that this victory represented the conclusion of the long family feud. I know earlier the announcers had joked that perhaps this is something that may extend yet another generation, but barring that, I tend to be in agreement with Ben. I honestly do not see the need for a third fight. I understand that they are now split in their series at one fight apiece, but Eubank offered so little this time around that it just feels unnecessary to me. So where does Ben go from here? He mentioned dropping back down to 154 or even 147, and I do wonder if he would even be able to safely and effectively cut back down to welterweight. But interestingly enough, at the end of the DAZN broadcast, 50% of the fans said they'd like to see him face Ryan Garcia next. Barrios was also mentioned, and I think either one of those fights would be good, where I never would have even guessed to mention Garcia myself, but I can definitely see the appeal there. That could certainly be a very interesting one for sure. Whatever he does do next, at the end of the day, Conor Benn's stock goes up. I'm not sure if he can ever win a major world championship, but it was an impressive victory where he showed tremendous improvement and proved that he is capable of fine-tuning his approach and learning from his mistakes. For Eubank, I'm not sure where he goes from here, but I thought he looked really old in this one. Nothing like the boxer we saw back in April. A lot of that no doubt had to do with Ben's refined tactics and approach, but at the same time, perhaps this is the end of the road for Eubank Jr. As a final thought, considering the heated nature of the rivalry between the two, I thought it was an outstanding display of sportsmanship from both guys after the fight. What did you think of Conor Benn's victory against Chris Eubank Jr.? Please let me know in the comments section. Right around the corner, coming up on the 22nd of November, the Ring 4, the Night of Champions. 4 different championship fights across 4 different weight classes, and this should be a terrific boxing event. Buy the fight now, only on DAZN. Thank you very much for watching and have a wonderful night. This is Rummy on the Ring from Rummy's Corner.